Welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah.
And we're going to be looking at something kind of counterintuitive, this idea that big, ambitious goals
Mm.
might actually be the obstacle to achieving greatness,
Mm.
which is just sounds crazy when you first hear it.
Yeah.
We're going to be using Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned, The Myth of the Objective
Okay.
by Kenneth O. Stanley and Joel Lehman to unpack this idea.
I'm excited.
So get ready.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah, to kind of rethink how you view success.
Yeah, you know what's so fascinating about this book is that it really challenges that conventional wisdom, that
Yeah.
we need these clearly defined objectives to achieve anything significant.
So are we saying like ditch all goals, wander aimlessly?
Right.
I'm a little lost.
Not exactly.
Okay.
It's a lot more nuanced than that.
Okay.
Think of it like this.
Okay.
While modest goals can be very helpful for everyday tasks,
Right.
like making a to-do list,
Sure.
when we're aiming for those really ambitious, groundbreaking achievements,
Yeah.
it often requires a less rigid approach,
Okay.
especially in areas like creativity,
Okay.
innovation,
Mm-hmm.
even personal fulfillment.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how do Stanley and Lehman explain this paradox?
So these is really cool analogy
Okay.
of a vast room filled with possibilities
Okay.
where valuable discoveries are kind of scattered throughout,
Ah.
like a treasure hunt.
Mm-hmm.
You might stumble upon these valuable stepping stones along the way.
Ooh, stepping stones.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so think of it this way.
Okay.
These stepping stones are those unexpected discoveries or developments that propel us towards something remarkable,
Okay.
even if they don't directly resemble the end goal.
Hmm.
Sometimes the path to a groundbreaking achievement is more like hopping across these stepping stones.
Okay.
You don't know exactly where you're going to land,
Right.
but you trust that it's leading you somewhere incredible.
I see. So it's not a straight ladder to success, it's more of an adventure. And that kind of reminds me of how the computer was invented.
Yeah.
It wasn't like somebody woke up and said, I'm going to invent the computer today.
Right.
It was a series of seemingly unrelated discoveries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The invention of the computer wasn't a direct result of scientists setting out with that specific objective in mind.
Yeah.
It was a culmination of many different discoveries, like the vacuum tube,
Right.
which was initially researched for completely different purposes.
Yeah, and it ended up paving the way for this we can't live without now.
It's amazing how these seemingly random discoveries end up shaping the course of history.
So I guess what we're saying is focusing too narrowly on that single objective that we had in mind
Mhm.
can actually blind us to the potential of those stepping stones.
Absolutely.
Those seemingly unrelated discoveries that could lead to something truly groundbreaking,
Yeah.
even something as transformative as the computer.
Precisely. And this isn't just limited to like technological advancements either.
Okay, where else?
Think about the evolution of art. Impressionism wasn't a deliberate attempt to reach Cubism,
Okay,
but it provided some really crucial stepping stones.
okay,
The artists weren't fixated on some distant future goal.
right.
They were captivated by the possibilities of the present.
Yeah,
And that's what really fueled that evolution of art.
that makes a lot of sense. So each artistic movement was a stepping stone in a way, shaping what came next,
Exactly.
but not totally predictable in advance.
Yeah, it's like each movement laid the groundwork for the next.
Yeah,
But nobody could have predicted the exact trajectory.
yeah, that's so interesting. And that kind of brings us to another intriguing concept from the book, this power of not looking.
Right.
Not looking. What do they mean by that?
It's such an interesting concept.
Yeah.
So Stanley and Lehman suggest that sometimes the best way to find something truly extraordinary
Okay.
is to stop fixating on a specific outcome.
Hmm.
They argue that when we're so focused on a particular goal, we might miss those valuable stepping stones
Okay.
that could lead us in a totally different direction.
So it sounds almost Zen-like.
Right.
Let go of the outcome and the path will reveal itself.
Yeah, kinda.
But how does that actually work in practice?
Okay, well, they offer some really interesting examples.
Okay.
Consider Johnny Depp, for instance.
Okay.
His path to acting actually started in a band.
Oh, wow.
Or John Grisham
Okay.
went from being a lawyer to a best-selling novelist.
Right.
And then there are the founders of YouTube
Okay.
who initially envisioned it as a video dating site.
What? I had
Yeah.
no idea.
Right.
That's a pretty drastic shift.
It is.
Wow.
So none of these individuals meticulously planned their ultimate success.
Okay.
They followed their interests.
Yeah.
They stayed open to opportunities.
Right.
And they embraced those unexpected turns.
Yeah.
And in doing so, They stumbled upon those stepping stones
Okay.
that led them to achieve something truly remarkable.
So it's not about ditching goals altogether. It's
Right.
more about being open to those unexpected possibilities.
Absolutely.
And recognizing those stepping stones, even if they seem totally unrelated to that ultimate goal we had in mind.
Yeah, it's about cultivating that mindset of exploration
Okay.
and allowing ourselves to be surprised by where those explorations might lead.
I'm starting to see how this connects back to the idea of the information accumulator.
Yes,
Another concept from the book.
absolutely. So these systems or individuals who prioritize novelty and exploration
Okay.
without being chained to that fixed objective,
Hmm.
they become these information accumulators.
Right.
They amass this diverse knowledge and experience,
Right.
increasing their potential for making those truly groundbreaking connections.
It's like building this massive library in your mind,
Yes.
filled with all sorts of interesting and seemingly unrelated bits of information.
Exactly. And you never know when one of those bits of information is going to connect with another.
Yeah, and spark some new insight.
Right.
Okay, I see how having that diverse library can lead to unexpected connections and breakthroughs.
Yeah.
But can you give me like a concrete example of how this information accumulator concept plays out in the real world?
Okay, so think about nature's grand experiment, evolution.
Okay.
Evolution itself wasn't aiming for human intelligence. Yet here we are,
Right.
by constantly exploring new possibilities and adapting to changing environments.
Mm-hmm.
Evolution amassed this incredible library of biological solutions,
Yeah.
ultimately leading to the complexity that we see today.
So evolution is like the ultimate information accumulator.
Exactly.
Constantly gathering information, trying out different combinations,
Yeah.
seeing what works,
Hmm.
and in the process, it stumbles upon these incredible innovations like human intelligence,
Right.
even though it wasn't specifically aiming for that outcome.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is.
Evolution is constantly experimenting
Yeah.
without being tethered to any predefined objective.
And in doing so, it's produced this vast and wondrous diversity of life that we see on Earth today.
It's truly remarkable.
This is making me rethink this whole idea of progress. You know, we're so conditioned to think that those meticulously planned objectives
Right.
are the only path to success, but maybe there's another way.
That's exactly what Stanley and Lehman challenge us to consider.
Okay.
They argue that we need to move away from this rigid, objective-based view of progress
Okay.
and embrace a more exploratory approach.
Okay. I like that.
And to illustrate this, they introduced this fascinating concept of a treasure hunting catalog.
A treasure hunting catalog.
Okay, what is that?
So imagine online stores
Okay.
where customers, instead of just buying pre-designed items,
Yeah.
could request variations and mutations of existing products. It's like being able to say, I like this chair, but can you give me a version with like wings
Okay.
and a built-in espresso machine?
That's wild.
And then some brilliant designer could actually create it.
So it's like crowdsourcing innovation.
Yeah,
Allowing people to explore different possibilities and create truly unique products
exactly.
that wouldn't have existed otherwise.
It's a really cool idea.
It is. And it's not just limited to products.
Right.
This principle can apply to any field
Okay.
where creativity and innovation are essential. Stanley and Lehman argue that even the scientific community
Okay.
can benefit from embracing a less rigid approach.
So instead of solely focusing on research with those predictable outcomes and immediate applications,
Right.
we should also consider supporting projects driven by pure curiosity
Yes.
and intellectual exploration.
Precisely. Think about all those historical examples
Yeah.
where seemingly useless mathematical theories
Right.
later found crucial applications in fields like physics and computer science.
Yeah.
You never know what connections and serendipitous discoveries might emerge
Right.
from research pursued for its own sake.
It reminds me of those times when I've gotten lost in a rabbit hole of research.
Yeah.
You start with one question,
Right.
and you end up somewhere completely unexpected but incredibly fascinating.
Exactly.
It's those unplanned explorations that often lead to the most exciting discoveries.
I totally agree.
So, Stanley and Lehman are urging us to view uncertainty not as a threat, but as this realm of immense possibility. Absolutely. They want us to embrace the unknown and let go of the need to always know exactly where we're going.
It's about being comfortable with ambiguity
Yeah.
and trusting that the journey itself might lead us to something truly remarkable.
Okay, I'm starting to get it.
And they offer a great example of this in action with this online platform called PickBreeder.
PigReader, remind me what that is.
Okay, so it's a platform where users can breed images
Okay.
by selecting visually appealing variations.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that the most striking creations often emerge from totally unexpected paths, defying any preconceived objectives.
Interesting.
Users who really tapped into PicBreeder's creative potential were the ones who followed their aesthetic instincts
Yeah.
and stayed open to surprises.
So it's not about having a rigid plan or a specific image in mind.
Right.
It's about exploring the possibilities.
Exactly.
And seeing where those explorations might lead.
And that's key to unlocking that true creative potential. It's about trusting the process of exploration and recognizing that sometimes the most incredible discoveries are the ones that we never could have planned for.
This is blowing my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Because so much of what we're taught about success emphasizes setting goals,
Right.
working towards them with laser focus.
Right.
But this is like a completely different way of thinking.
It is, and it can be incredibly liberating.
Okay.
It's about shifting our mindset from focusing solely on the destination to embracing the journey itself with all its unexpected twists and turns.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we open ourselves up to possibilities we never even imagined.
I'm really starting to see how this myth of the objective can limit us. It's like we get so fixated on reaching a specific destination that we miss all the incredible scenery along the way.
Exactly. And sometimes those seemingly insignificant detours, those unexpected discoveries, are what ultimately lead us to something truly extraordinary.
Yeah.
Something far greater than we ever could have planned for.
Wow. This is giving me a lot to think about.
Me too.
I'm eager to see how these ideas play out in real-world situations.
Well, that's exactly what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll delve into how this myth of the objective shows up in everyday life.
Okay.
From education and science to even personal growth.
Okay. Can't wait to continue this exploration. See you in part 2.
Sound good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into why greatness cannot be planned.
It's great to be back.
Last time we were talking about how those big, ambitious objectives might actually be holding us back from achieving true greatness.
Absolutely. And we explored how that plays out in areas like technology and art.
Yeah, like the invention of the computer totally blew my mind.
Yeah, it's a classic example of how greatness often emerges from unexpected places.
And those stepping stones, those little discoveries along the way.
The stepping stones are key.
Yeah, so now I'm really curious to see how this myth of the objective plays out in other areas of life.
Well, let's dive into education.
Okay.
A realm that's often dominated by standardized tests and this pressure to achieve specific learning outcomes.
Ugh, standardized tests.
Yeah.
Just thinking back to my school days.
Right.
All that cramming for exams, feeling like my entire worth was measured by a single number.
Yeah, it's not exactly conducive to genuine learning, is it?
Not at all. So are Stanley and Lehman saying that we should just ditch all learning goals?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing the limitations of this hyper-focus on standardized testing as the be-all and end-all of education.
So while setting some learning goals can be helpful,
Sure.
maybe we need to rethink this obsession with standardized tests. That's like the ultimate measure of success.
They use a really interesting example to illustrate this point.
Okay.
The example of GDP.
GDP, gross domestic product.
Exactly. A common measure of a nation's economic productivity.
All right, so the higher the GDP, the better, right?
Well, on the surface, it seems like a logical goal.
Yeah.
To maximize GDP.
Because higher GDP means a stronger economy in theory.
Right. But if you think about it, a boost in GDP in one specific area doesn't necessarily mean that those same economic policies will lead to even higher GDP overall.
I see.
Or in the future.
So it's like squeezing a balloon in one spot.
Yeah.
You might create a bulge somewhere else.
Right.
But it doesn't mean the balloon is actually getting bigger overall.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And this drive to maximize GDP, this fixation on a single number, can actually lead to policies that create a short-term boost, but are ultimately harmful in the long run.
Like those quick fix diets.
Exactly.
I might lose weight quickly,
right?
But it's not sustainable, and you could even end up damaging your metabolism.
Exactly. It's not about abandoning GDP as a metric altogether.
Right.
It's about recognizing its limitations.
Right.
And not allowing it to become the sole driver of economic policy.
We need to consider the broader context.
Absolutely.
And those long-term implications of our actions.
They actually have a term for this. They call it GDP fetishism.
GDP fetishism.
Yeah, the danger of guiding national policy solely through these simplified measures
Right.
that don't capture that full picture.
It makes sense. And this problem isn't just limited to economics, is it?
No, it's not. They talk about this concept of perverse incentives.
Perverse incentive. Okay, what are those?
So these are situations where well-intentioned measures designed to improve things actually make them worse.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, they give this fascinating example from British-ruled India.
Okay.
So the government was trying to reduce the cobra population,
Okay, makes sense.
so they offered a bounty for every dead cobra brought to them.
Seems logical enough to pay people to kill cobras, fewer cobras?
Right, but guess what happened?
What?
People started breeding cobras
Oh, no.
just to collect the bounty.
So the number of venomous snakes actually increased.
Exactly. The incentive, while well-intentioned, created a whole new problem.
That's a major backfire.
It's a classic example of how focusing too narrowly on an objective can distort the entire system
Right.
and lead to these unintended consequences.
So it's like they were so focused on reducing the number of cobras
Right?
that they didn't even consider how people might exploit the system.
Exactly. And this myopia, this inability to see the bigger picture,
Yeah.
can have some really significant consequences.
It's a great reminder to always consider those unintended consequences
Absolutely.
and to be willing to adapt and adjust our approach as we go.
Flexibility is key. And speaking of unintended consequences,
Okay.
let's shift gears and look at how this myth of the objective plays out in the world of science.
Science? That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that science and objectives would be at odds.
You think they'd go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, because science is all about setting hypotheses and testing them rigorously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Stanley and Lehman argue that even in science, this rigid adherence to predefined objectives can sometimes backfire.
Okay, how so?
Well, they point out that the pressure to secure funding for research
Mm-hmm.
often leads scientists to overemphasize the predicted impact of their work.
So it's like saying, give me money for this research and I guarantee you will cure cancer.
Exactly. And while there's nothing wrong with pursuing research that has the potential to make a real difference,
Right.
the problem is that those groundbreaking discoveries often emerge from unexpected places.
Like those seemingly useless mathematical theories
Exactly.
that ended up revolutionizing physics and
Yeah.
computer science.
It's those unexpected stepping stones again.
Yeah, it's like the path to a scientific breakthrough isn't always a straight line.
Right.
It's more like this winding path with all these unexpected detours.
Precisely. And that's why Stanley and Lehman advocate for supporting research driven by pure curiosity,
Okay.
even if the potential impact isn't immediately obvious.
So it's not about abandoning goal-oriented research altogether.
Right.
It's about recognizing the value of exploration
Absolutely.
and creating space for those what-if questions.
Yeah, those questions that might not have an immediate payoff,
Right.
but could lead to incredible breakthroughs down the line.
It would be amazing if scientific funding wasn't solely based on the promise of specific outcomes,
Right.
but also considered the potential for those unexpected discoveries.
It's like giving those brilliant minds the freedom to explore uncharted territories.
Yeah, to follow their curiosity wherever it might lead.
Exactly like saying to a researcher, here's a grant, go out there and explore,
Right.
see what you can find. We trust your instincts and your ability to uncover something amazing.
Yeah, even if we don't know exactly what that will be yet.
Exactly. It's about fostering that culture of exploration
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that some of the most groundbreaking discoveries have come from those who dared to venture beyond those well-trodden paths.
Those who weren't afraid to ask unconventional questions.
Right.
And pursue research that might have seemed useless at the time.
It makes you wonder how many potentially groundbreaking discoveries have been missed,
Right.
because researchers felt pressured to focus solely on those projects with clearly defined objectives.
It's a sobering thought.
It highlights the importance of embracing uncertainty
Yeah.
and recognizing that the path to scientific progress isn't always linear or predictable.
This whole idea of not looking for a specific outcome really challenges that traditional view of science as this purely objective pursuit.
Right.
It suggests that intuition, curiosity, and even a bit of serendipity play a crucial role in scientific discovery.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that the most profound breakthroughs
Yeah.
often emerge from those moments when researchers stumble upon something unexpected, when they allow themselves to be surprised by the data
Yeah.
or the results of their experiment.
It's like that famous quote by Louis Pasteur,
Oh, yeah.
chance favors the prepared mind.
Exactly. It's not just about blindly stumbling upon discoveries.
Right.
It's about having the knowledge, the skills, and the open-mindedness
Mhm.
to recognize the significance of those unexpected findings.
And this brings us to another fascinating realm where this myth of the objective can be seen in action.
Oh, where's that?
The world of art.
Art.
Yeah. I know it seems like a bit of a jump from science.
It does.
But you might be surprised.
Okay, yeah, I'm intrigued.
So while art is often seen as this realm of pure creativity and self-expression,
Right.
it's not immune to those pressures of having to justify its purpose
Well,
or
sure.
demonstrate its value.
I see what you mean.
Like even artists might feel pressure to create work that's commercially viable
Right.
or that fits into a particular artistic movement or style.
Exactly. And this pressure to conform to those external expectations can actually stifle that creativity and originality that art is supposed to embody.
It's like expecting an artist to paint a masterpiece by following a paint by numbers kit.
Exactly. It just doesn't work that way.
So Stanley and Lehman argue that truly great art often emerges from a process of exploration and experimentation,
Right.
not from trying to achieve those predetermined aesthetic goals or replicate existing masterpieces.
It's about allowing that creative process to unfold organically,
Yeah.
to be guided by intuition and inspiration,
Right.
rather than a rigid set of objectives.
It makes me think of those abstract expressionist painters like Jackson Pollock,
Yeah.
who seem to be more interested in the process of creating
Mm,
than in producing a finished product with a specific meaning or message.
exactly. And while abstract expressionism might not be everyone's cup of tea,
Sure.
it really highlights the importance of embracing that journey of artistic creation,
Right.
of allowing the work to evolve and take shape without being constrained by preconceived notions of what it should be.
It reminds me of that story about the student at the Rhode Island School of Design.
Oh, yeah. The one who
Mhm.
created art by beating metal surfaces with an axe.
Yeah, and then resting them on the beach.
Yeah, he was creating something truly unique and expressive.
Right.
But he felt insecure because he couldn't articulate a clear objective for his work.
It's fascinating how even in the realm of art where creativity and self-expression should reign supreme,
Mm-hmm.
this myth of the objective can creep in and stifle innovation.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it seems like we're so conditioned to think that everything needs to have a clear purpose or goal
Right.
that we forget the value of simply exploring, experimenting, and allowing ourselves to be surprised.
Absolutely. Sometimes the most incredible discoveries emerge from those moments of unplanned exploration.
Exactly. So as we move into the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we're going to explore how this myth of the objective plays out on the grandest stage of all evolution.
Evolution. Wow, that's a big leap from art and science.
It is, but get ready for some mind-bending insights.
I'm ready.
Because we're about to challenge some of those traditional assumptions about evolution
Okay.
and explore how viewing it through the lens of why greatness cannot be planned can lead to a whole new understanding.
Okay. Of the forces that shape life on Earth.
This is going to be good.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into why greatness cannot be planned.
Yeah, this is where it all comes together.
It really does. We've been on quite a journey.
We have.
From the invention of the computer
Yeah.
to the surprising ways objectives can impact education,
Right.
science, and even art.
Yeah, it's amazing how this one idea connects to so many different areas of life.
It is. And now we're taking on the biggest challenge, yet applying these ideas to the very process that created us, evolution.
Evolution, the granddaddy of them all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So get ready to have your mind blown because we're about to turn those conventional ideas about evolution on their head.
You know, when we typically think about evolution, we often focus on this idea of survival of the fittest.
Right, that relentless competition.
Yeah, where only the strongest and most adapted organisms survive.
Right, and pass on their genes to the next generation.
It's like this epic battle
Yeah.
where organisms are constantly fighting for resources.
Struggling to outcompete each other.
Right.
And only the winners get to pass on their traits.
So it's like this very goal-oriented process.
Right, it's all about achieving that ultimate objective of fitness.
But what if this objective-driven view of evolution, this focus on fitness as the ultimate goal, is actually obscuring a deeper truth?
That's exactly what Stanley and Lehman propose.
Okay, now you've got me really curious. What deeper truth could we be missing?
So they suggest that instead of viewing survival and reproduction as the objective of evolution,
Okay,
we should actually view it as a constraint.
a constraint.
Yeah, think about it.
I-
Any organism that manages to survive long enough to reproduce, no matter how it does it,
Yeah.
gets to continue its lineage.
So it's not about being the best or the most fit in some absolute sense.
Right.
It's simply about meeting this minimal criteria
Yeah.
of survival and reproduction.
It's like passing a test.
Right.
But the test is just, did you survive long enough to make babies?
Well, it's exactly.
So it's not about achieving some perfect state of fitness.
Right.
It's about meeting those bare minimum requirements to keep the game going.
And once you remove this notion of better or more fit,
Yeah.
all those successful organisms from bacteria to humans, they kind of become equals in a sense.
Exactly. They've all achieved the same thing.
Right.
They've survived and reproduced.
Right.
But they've done it in these wildly different ways.
That's a pretty radical shift in perspective.
It is. It challenges the way we typically think about evolution.
It really does. So if survival and reproduction are just this baseline, what's really driving this incredible creativity and diversity of life that we see on Earth?
That's the million-dollar question, and that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
This shift in perspective opens up this whole new way of understanding evolution's creativity.
I like it.
Stanley and Lehman introduced this concept of evolution as a minimal criteria search.
Minimal criteria search. Okay, break that down for me.
So it means that evolution isn't heading towards some specific objective or some ideal form. It's simply exploring all those possible ways to meet that minimal criteria
Okay.
of survival and reproduction.
So instead of viewing evolution as this targeted ascent
Right.
towards some peak of fitness,
Right.
it's more like this ever-expanding exploration of all the viable ways to exist and reproduce.
Think of it like water spilling out of a container.
Okay.
It's not aiming for any particular destination.
Right.
It's just flowing into every nook and cranny,
Yeah.
exploring all the available space.
Okay, so as evolution explores, as the spill flows outward,
Right.
it inevitably stumbles upon those more complex and intricate solutions.
And then those complex solutions aren't necessarily better or more evolved.
Okay.
They're just the next stepping stones that emerge from this ongoing process of exploration.
It challenges this whole idea of a hierarchy of life with humans at the top.
Yeah.
It's more like we're all just these different expressions of life's creativity, each finding our own unique way to exist and thrive.
It's a beautiful way to think about it. And it also reframes the role of competition.
Okay. How so?
So this idea of survival of the fittest often makes it seem like evolution is all about this ruthless struggle for dominance.
All right.
But what if that's not the whole story?
Okay.
What if diversity and complexity arise not just from competition,
Okay.
but also from this relentless exploration of all those viable possibilities?
So less about battling it out and more about this creative unfolding of possibilities.
Exactly.
I love that it makes me wonder what life might look like on a world without that pressure of natural selection.
Well, you're in luck because Stanley and Lehman actually proposed this thought experiment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they call it gentle Earth.
Gentle Earth.
Yeah,
Oh,
where
yeah.
every organism, no matter how fit or unfit by our standards,
Okay.
is guaranteed to survive and reproduce.
Wow. So it's like this biological utopia.
Exactly.
No predators, no starvation, no competition for resources.
The world of abundance.
What would happen on Gentle Earth?
Right? Would life just stagnate without that pressure of natural selection?
Yeah, that's what you'd expect, right?
You would. But Stanley and Lehman actually suggest the opposite.
What?
They believe that gentle Earth would likely see even greater diversity and complexity
Really?
than we see on our own Earth.
That seems so counterintuitive.
It does, but it makes sense when you think about it.
Okay.
So natural selection, while essential for ensuring that organisms can survive in their environments,
Right.
it also acts as a constraint on evolution's exploratory power.
Okay.
It weeds out those variations that aren't immediately successful,
Right.
even if those variations might hold the potential for incredible breakthroughs down the line.
So it's like this filter
Right.
that, while necessary for survival,
Yeah,
also limits the range of possibilities that evolution can explore.
exactly. By removing that filter, that
Yeah.
pressure of selection,
Yeah.
gentle Earth would allow evolution to explore a much wider range of possibilities.
So you'd have even more diversity and even more wondrous life forms.
Exactly. It's like saying that the very force that drives adaptation and survival also limits the potential for even greater diversity and complexity.
It's a paradox.
It is, but one that highlights the incredible creativity and resilience of life.
Yeah, it really does.
And it aligns perfectly with that central theme of why greatness cannot be planned.
So evolution in its purest form isn't about achieving some predetermined objective.
Right.
It's about embracing the unknown
Mhm.
and accumulating those stepping stones that lead to ever-expanding possibilities.
It's about trusting the process of exploration
Yeah.
and recognizing that true greatness, whether in the evolution of life
Right.
or in our own human endeavors,
Mm-hmm.
often emerges from those unexpected detours
Yeah.
and those serendipitous discoveries.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It's kind of humbling.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
The big takeaway is this clinging to those rigid objectives,
Mm.
fixating on those distant goals.
Mm.
It can really blind us to the valuable stepping stones right in front of us.
It's about being present.
Yes.
Embracing the uncertainty, following our curiosity, and recognizing that those unexpected turns and detours
Right.
might actually lead us to something truly remarkable.
It's about being open to the possibilities that lie just beyond the horizon of our carefully laid plans.
It's about trusting the process.
Yeah.
And allowing ourselves to be surprised by where it might lead.
Who knows, maybe by letting go of the need to always know where we're going, we might just stumble upon a greatness we never even dared to imagine.
What a beautiful thought to end on.
It is, isn't it?
Thank you so much for taking us on this incredible deep dive into why greatness cannot be planned.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all of you listeners out there, we hope you've enjoyed this exploration as much as we have.
I hope so.
Remember, keep diving deep, keep those minds open, and never be afraid to stray from that well-trodden path.
The world is full of possibilities.
It really is. The most incredible discoveries often lie just beyond the edges of the map. Until next time, happy exploring.
See you then.